This is the One Shot Growth Podcast. No fluff, real business. Hosted by Daniel Radabaugh and Derek Boyd, where business, mindset, and real life collide through real conversations, real experiences, and figuring it out together. If you're building, learning, and figuring it out too, you're in the right place.
Getting back into the swing of things, I took a week off and went down and spent some time with the family. Had a great vacation, man. It's good to be back, though. You know, setting that laptop to the side, setting the cell phone to the side, and not doing a single thing work-wise for a week is hard. Absolutely. You know, I think I picked it up maybe 3 times for phone calls, and you and I did the podcast episode last week remotely. But It's good to be back. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, brother.
So,
yeah, we're notoriously bad about when we're not in that break mode about reaching for that phone or that laptop and what else can we do? And, I thought about this or I forgot about that. This podcast needs video editing. This content course creation needs tweaking. There's always an infinite list of things we're working on. And when we're not in break mode, the quickest thing that we usually do that sabotages ourselves a lot is we just never put it down.
Yep.
And that ends up turning into days and weeks of just grinding. And we're in the middle of so many things right now with managing roles and supporting other organizations and doing a full launch out of One Shot Growth. There's so much involved in trying to prioritize those buckets, and it doesn't leave a whole lot of room for focusing on mental health, which is, as we know, the primary driver to how we show up in those situations anyway. So it's much needed. We've come to terms with the fact that it's not negotiable for us to look at that big old pile and mountain of to-dos and say, you know what, we know there's work to be done and it's going to be here when we get back. Let's take a break. Let's take a hike. Let's burn off to Cloudcroft. Let's go down to the hill country, you know, whatever it may be, even if it's just here locally. Let's hit the nature trails and make the time to disconnect from electronics, focus on our breathing, focus on our nervous system, and just get out of grind mode for a change. And that's been a big help for us.
yeah, it was great, man. I mean, I spent a week of doing nothing but fishing, taking pictures, going out, sitting around the campfire, playing music, playing the handpan guitar, spending time with my family. I mean, it's one of those that you overlook very quick being an entrepreneur. You don't think about it, and the next thing you know, you're 16, 18-hour days, not sleeping, blood pressure's high because you're always worrying about where's my next client, what can I do? And then when you finally disconnect and you finally take that time, all of a sudden you go, what have I been doing for the last 6 months? It's a game changer to look at your inner self and realize that your battery is charged and recharged just like a cell phone. And you've got to find the things to recharge your battery.
Yeah. We've learned through this, taking the breaks and taking the time, you know, the big push for entrepreneurs often is just go, do all the time. And a lot of times there's not just our personal selves that gets the brunt end of that neglect. It's our family too. And we've often realized that when we slow down and we get back to spending time with our family, getting back to our roots and who we are, what we're about, not only do we benefit from the slowdown, but our family benefits from actually getting to spend time with us while we're not just working our asses off all the time. Yep. And a lot of our identity that we talked about in the previous episode is tied into who we are, where we come from, how we were raised. And I'm sure, you know, when you were on your trip with your family, taking the time to see how your uncle responded to getting that quality time means a lot more in the long run than us finishing another 3 or 4 sections of work that's going to be here regardless.
Yeah.
And oftentimes as leaders and entrepreneurs, we're pushed to achieve tasks, and the visits fall off, the time spent falls off, the years start clicking off faster than we realize. Next thing you know, we haven't been home in a year or two. And I think that's a shame, because the mental health aspect of us being balanced as a person ties directly into that. You need to take time to go back to your roots and spend time with those that you love. And that ends up being a lot more fulfilling and recharging than, I mean, some of my favorite things to do is just go home. You know, Sunday dinner with the folks. You're not going to get any better than that. I grew up there. You know, I lived in that house. I had dinner with my family in that house, and I can drop everything I'm doing and walk in that front door, and everything else stands still for a while. And if you don't do that, then you're just constantly pushing ahead, and then you finally stop and take a break, and you realize, like, man, I've been missing out on so much, not on the doing, but just the being. And actually just taking a pause to just exist as a human being outside of this whole scheme that we're trying to operate in.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much it affected me going back to the house, right? And, you know, my family, I was born and raised out in Brenham, Texas, out in the middle of the hill country. You know, call it the hill country. It's more rolling hills than anything. But getting back there, spending, 8 days with my uncle, right? And I hadn't done that in so long, not for that extended period of time. It's always been going for Easter. I got to be back by Monday, right? So we're staying overnight, doing one night, and then coming back. But me and him spending time together, like, we shared tears. And it's just because, why haven't we done this before? He's 75 now. He's having issues and needed some help. And on top of that, we just wanted to spend time together. But I've got to make up for it now. And doing that has to be a priority in life. Otherwise, you're going to fall out. You know, your family's going to fall out. You're going to wind up in a situation where you look back and go, why did I do everything I did?
Well, and the normal mode of doing and more work, it never changes. There's always more to do, and that's always going to be there. So that category is really not changing much. You're going to come back to work and you're going to do, and you're going to do the same stuff all the time. Different buckets of focus and some different outputs, but that's always just going to be work. And we're very consciously aware that we're running out of time with some people in our lives and ourselves with taking care of our health. We continue to pour into more work that's always there and always going to pile up. We're taking off years on the backside of our lives, and everybody wants to focus on this accomplishment of this end goal, but what do we really sacrifice in the pursuit when we don't take that time and just lend ourselves to our people we love, our friends and our family, that doesn't have anything to do with what we want as a person? And a lot of times our family that's getting up there in age, they need us, and they don't need our work knowledge. They need our time, and they need our support. And it's really challenging to take a step back and a bird's eye view, if you will, of your life and start to reprioritize. Okay, I could push through and get this work session in all day Saturday, or I could, if you want to run a hybrid approach, maybe get a couple hours in and then put a hard pause in and then spend the rest of the day with the family. We went from not doing anything at all, push, work, to peppering in little bits here and there where we'd say, all right, let's do this. And then as we realized the value in it, it started to shift to a more even approach, which, like, you know what? Out of the 7 days of the week, these days and these times are non-negotiable. This dinner will happen with my wife. This dinner will happen with my partner. I'm making time for my parents. I'm making time for my siblings. A lot of times that involves travel for a lot of us. So if you don't put that as a priority, you're just stuck in the rat race of the workload.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. So when you think about burnout, right, and getting to that point where it's starting to affect your health, it's starting to affect your work ethic, your day-to-day operations, who do you blame?
If I'm being really transparent, it's easy to put that blame on everybody else and criticize the cause to be whatever I'm involved in. It's my boss's fault that the expectation is so high. It's my friends and family's expectations of me. But if you do have that extreme accountability, you also have to be really truthful with yourself that it's on you. Like, the driver behind how we perceive our day-to-day life is, a lot of times we tend to make things worse than they are, and it's because we do it to ourselves. And if you look at a situation and really step outside of yourself from another perspective, you realize pretty quick, I'm the one that's making that be worse than it is. I'm the one that's putting this extra pressure on myself to carry this weight that's not necessary. And it's so wild to come to that realization where, you mean to tell me this whole time I've been making this harder on myself and it's my fault? And it sounds like it would not be an easy fix to go into that and shore it up, but it really is, on a high level, it is as simple as looking at yourself and taking accountability for that stuff and saying, this is on me. And before I get ramped up and I get sucked into this vacuum of things that are going on, I need to be a lot more intentional about what I'm contributing to the formula. And if that means I need to take a step back and slow down and reassess some things, like this, it's getting too real. I need to back up a little bit and make some time for myself. And maybe I need to call on some close friends and have some discussions that I don't like to have. Maybe that's whatever that looks like for you. If it's seeing a specialist or a therapist and creating a container space to work through problems in your life that you weren't really, you need to have the accountability for yourself to know that it's you, but you also need a lot of help to unpack that. It's not something that people can do on their own, and that's across many buckets, right? We've talked about that a lot.
Absolutely, man. I mean, you hit it on the head. I caught myself coming home after a 12 to 15 hour day and getting upset with my wife because she wanted to spend time with me because I had more work to do, right? I don't talk to her during the day when I'm working. Very, very little, unless it's an emergency. And I got to the point where I was annoyed to have that phone conversation for a half hour instead of making more work calls on my way back from out of town. That's not how you should prioritize your life. You're not allowing yourself time to enjoy it. You're not allowing your time to decompress after work every day. And that goes another route, right? Like, she would want to talk right after I'd been gunning, trying to wind down, trying to decompress. And, I probably should have taken that 30 minutes for myself and then talked to her for 30 minutes. However you handle that, if she's your decompression, great. Talk to her for 30 minutes right when you get out. But if you need time to disconnect and listen to music, not think about work, start thinking about home, start thinking about the questions and what's going on in her life, and then have that conversation once you've done that. The problem is for entrepreneurs, for business leaders, COO, CEO, it doesn't matter. You get in that car, it never fails. Somebody forgot to tell you something before you left the office. And then you're having conversations. If you're in something like frac sand or pressure pumping or something, it's 24-hour ops. Never fails. You get in the truck, you're heading to the house after being in the office all day. What happens? Frac pumps go down, you're on MPT, you're getting phone calls from the customer. It never stops, right? So figuring out how to balance that, if you know that your evenings are not going to be a time to disconnect, start waking up early and give yourself that time before you go to work. You know, you hit the gym every day, right? I like doing my walks. I like doing all this other stuff. Sometimes it's just sitting there and playing music when I get to the house or before I go to work. Reading. There's so many ways that you can recenter yourself just for a little while in the morning, in the evening, and make that day a whole lot less miserable than it has to be. It's very easy to look at it and say, I'm doing too much. Or once things slow down, I'll feel better. Getting to that point where you push so hard and you say, I just need a break. I don't feel personally like that's the true obstacles, right? How many times have you taken a trip like I did last week? And you've been saying it for months, man, I need a break. I'm just going to wait till it gets slow and I'm going to take a week off. And then what happens when you take that week off? You don't stop, right? You just keep going and going and going. And when you get back to work, and it's that Monday after that week vacation, and you feel like you need a vacation from your vacation.
100%.
Being able to realize that does nothing for your mental health. You have to truly say, no matter what, I'm taking off, and I'm going to give myself the time, right? And I'm going to put the systems in place. I'm going to talk to my employees. I'm going to do whatever I need to do and tell them, I need this for me.
Yeah.
And also on the other side, understand that your employees need that too. You know, I've been in roles where I forgot that. And as the COO or as the chief strategy officer, I'm sitting there and I've got people answering to me. And when they're on vacation, I'm calling them. Hey, did you get this done? Oh, you're on vacation? Yeah, no problem. Just get it done when you can. They don't shut it off because they know I want it done.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a huge disconnect in oil and gas, especially in this industry. And just being able to say that I've put the systems in place. I've gotten to the point where I know he can take off tomorrow and it's not going to affect my job. It's not going to affect my team. And if something happens, we'll handle it. And I think that's one of the big misconceptions out here in this industry is you have to keep going.
Well, there's so much pressure in every role, especially oil and gas, highly critical, metric-driven success, especially if you're on the service side of things, which we know is it never does shut off. You're constantly having to run at peak performance, and if you don't, you get fired.
Yep.
And the challenge with operating in that mode is you stay spooled up, you're basically a loaded gun walking around, and that's personally and professionally. You operate inside of this work mode for days, weeks, months, whatever, and then you do finally get the space to spend some time with your partner, your wife, your family, whatever. But you're not in the same headspace to meet them with presence. You're still spooled up from handling things like you normally would. I'm counted on to operate at a high level, which means I know how to fix this. But everybody reaches a point where they need the break from being the only person that has the answer all the time. Yep. And time with the family doesn't always need to look like how many times have you taken that break and been on a trip and you haven't switched modes. You're still in that mode. You're not working, but you're still in that mental headspace where you're trying to be who you're expected to be. You're trying to line up activities, and you're trying to make solutions for problems that your partner has, or your family has, and that's what you excel at work. But when you bring that back over into the other side, even if you're on vacation or you're taking a break, that's not really doing you justice to stay in that same operating mode. And it never fails. I mean, how many times being in these roles have we gotten to the point, it's at the tipping point of you needing a check on your mental health, when every phone call or email makes you cringe and you get defensive for your time. And whether that's a team member calling you, I know in coordinating and handling logistics and personnel, it's gotten so bad for me. I have to be really careful about how I even speak to them, because so much is going on in the day-to-day with contact, emails, phone calls. You see that name come up on the phone, and the first response is, damn, man, like, again? What could you possibly need from me? I'm trying to figure myself out, and how dare you interrupt my time? You get on the phone, and you're in a completely different headspace, and then afterwards, when you finally have time to think about it, you're like, man, I was not my best self in how I handled that. People can sense that energy, and if you don't work out a way to create that balance with your mental health and get that kind of balanced again, you're just walking around as a miserable, pissed off person all the time, and everybody that's in your circle of influence is getting impacted by that. Yeah. And it's super easy for us to do in the area of work that we focus on.
Absolutely, in all areas, really. I mean, we talk about this a lot when we do our speaking engagements. How many times do you leave work, get to the house, and work's still on your mind? Your wife says, I love you, and you snap at her because she didn't say it right. Or how many times did you have an argument with your wife in the morning, family in the morning, whatever the case may be, and then you pick up the phone and your answer with what? Hey, boss, I was just calling to say, hey, just calling to give you a good update on something great that happened today. And you were pissed off.
Yeah. When you start operating at a level where you're responsible for several different things all the time, you start to get hyper focused on time allocation, and it's really easy. We found ourselves in positions a lot of times where that personal disconnect, where a friend or a coworker just wants to call and chop it up for a bit and just talk, you find yourself getting super annoyed with everything that's going on there, and they just want to see how you're doing and check up on you, and maybe in their moment in time in their life they've got a chance to do that. And when we're not in that mode to be able to pick that up from them, our expression into that equation is, I don't have time for this right now. You're bothering me, or you're annoying me. Hey, I don't have time for this right now. How many times have we seen in our nonprofit efforts with our brothers where people are reaching out because they genuinely need connection and help, and a lot of us are operating at a super high level with roles inside of companies, passion projects on the side, volunteering with the nonprofit efforts. And when somebody finally gets the courage and the strength to be vulnerable with you and bring that to you, how you handle that situation makes a difference between you being an effective impact on them or not. And that trickles down into the leadership too inside of a company and an organization, and how you handle your people. If you don't show up and are primed in that moment to hold space for them in a way that shows them, this person that I'm trying to talk to is here, they care, they're ready to listen, their body expressions, their eye contact is showing me that they're at peace, they want to hear what I have to say. If you don't, then you've squashed any chance of having a positive impact in that moment. And that compounds day by day, week by week, with walking around like we talked about as this, being a pretty much just ready to blow up at anybody. And eventually people start to say, this guy doesn't make time for me. He doesn't care what I have to say. Never makes time to chop it up. He's too busy for me. We see that a lot in the entrepreneur space because we're trying to do things that maybe other people aren't doing that they won't understand, and we have to be dialed in. And we get those little, hey, what about this? Do you have time for this? What do y'all think about rounding up over here? And what about a lunch? What about this local event that's happening? And we're constantly having to, initially we're like, no, I got stuff going on. I don't have time for that. Like, this is the last thing I'm worried about doing right now. But then when you think about, okay, is this about me or is this about them? You have to really get back into balance with being able to come back and say, man, this isn't about me and my passions, my goals, my dreams, my expectations right now. I need to make time for them because they're important to me.
It's funny you bring that up, man. Last week I had a really good conversation with a very close friend of mine, and the one thing that was said was, are you going to be able to handle all that? And my first reaction was absolutely, I always do. I have no problem. 2 nonprofits that I'm on the board for, our company, running another company, all of our clients that I've got to answer to. Never had a problem with it. But then you look at it and you go, at what point am I taking away from every other effort that I have by trying to do too much? Right? If you're doing 10 things half-ass, that's exactly what they're getting is half-ass.
Yeah.
And not giving everybody your whole self, right? And what you owe to yourself, owe to them, winds up neglecting from them. It winds up where you're sitting there and you've got a bunch of people pissed off at you. And then it winds up with you questioning your own moral, saying, I need to do more. And then you take less time for yourself because you're putting that extra effort into that nonprofit that you neglected last week. And then you're no longer in a proactive phase where you're equally trying to give everybody time. And you're saying, I'm going to block out a half an afternoon and go spend time with this person. Instead, you're saying, they called me, so now I got to give them lunch tomorrow. Well, that's going to take away from this, which is going to push this to the right. And now I've got this that's getting pushed to the right. And then it's a never-ending cycle. You can't put yourself in a position where it's always go, go, go. You've got to plan. You've got to coordinate your life. You've got to make time for those around you and also make time for yourself.
When you hit that burnout mode, there's no question that it's time for a hard look at the mental health aspect of the equation. And we're really bad about feeling guilty when something from one of the several buckets comes up, and we can default really easily to, I'm not doing enough. I've neglected this area over here, so I need to kick it up a notch. And the problem with that is, if you're just in autopilot mode, trying to balance all the spinning plates, and you do take that 30-minute conversation, or you do take that lunch, but you haven't made the time for yourself, how you show up in that time, you might as well not even done it, because it's felt, your presence is felt, how your mindset is in that conversation.
Yep.
They can tell, this dude's checked out. He's thinking about 35 other things right now, and I just miss my buddy.
Yep.
Like, I just want us to talk about the weather and, the buck we saw on the mountain, or the fish we caught at the lake a couple weekends back. Like, we guilt ourselves into feeling bad that we have neglected, but what's the true neglect? When's the last time we honestly ask ourselves, what tools and areas of opportunity am I neglecting to really focus on myself? And we have this challenge constantly pushed up against us where being an entrepreneur or a business person or a man or a father, a husband, a partner, this constantly having to shift around all these responsibilities, and usually that looks like a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And to be able to, you have an amazing wife that is very understanding about, as much as she wants to catch up on time with you, she understands he needs his time to do what he likes to do.
Yep.
Because if he doesn't get that time, how he shows up in our time together is going to be drastically different.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how many times have we've been sitting here at our desk and you're trying to have a conversation or show me something you're excited about, and I've sat there and I'm dialed into an email, sending the next email, moving on to this, trying to listen to you at the same time, and then when I look up, I say, huh? Right? It's not intentional.
Yeah.
But allocating your time and saying, okay, brother, I need 10 minutes. And then I'm all yours, man. But let me finish this first.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to disconnect. I've got about 10 minutes. I've got a call coming up in a half hour, and I need 20 minutes to get this done before the call. So let's figure out what you need in 10 minutes, right? And just being blunt about it. Being friendly, but being blunt about it. And saying that I've only got so much time. I know I need to get this done, but I still want to give you the time that you deserve. And actually separating the two tasks and giving them the intention that they belong or they need.
Yeah, so bringing this to a close, what we really wanted to talk about and discuss and point to was just about the shift in perspective on your operating mode and moving from a system where everything depends on me and I have to carry all this weight. I can never shut this off. It's always constantly running in my mind. How I'm interacting with anybody around me is a direct reflection of how much time am I putting into my mental health. And if you feel like that you've been in this position before in many different ways and are just looking for maybe a different approach in how you go about this, we can't tell you enough and encourage you to really take a look at your mental health. And that could look like a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but shifting from this doing mentality to having a little bit of being in that mix and looking at different ways to disconnect, prioritize your mental health,
Yep.
pick those hobbies back up, do things and make time for yourself that allows you to be really honest with how you're showing up in everyday life.
Yeah, I mean, live with intention, right? You have to intentionally give yourself a break. You have to intentionally look at your family and friends and say, I owe it to you to spend time with you. And you have to intentionally look at your heart and say, I am not going to stress about this today. Right? Those three things go so far in taking care of yourself and allowing you to operate at your fullest capabilities. If you're always working, you're not working at your fullest capability. Recharging your batteries, like I said earlier, is key to success. And figuring out what those things are that allow you to truly recharge is what we're trying to say here. You're never doing too much. You're just not structuring your life in a manner to where part of that too much is something you enjoy. Yeah. Just restructure.
Yeah. We've seen this really ironic paradox. I'm sure you've heard or seen the quotes around someone can only meet you to the level that they met themselves. And you really have to look at yourself from that perspective, because if you look at how you're showing up in the world to everybody else that's around you, you're only going to be able to meet them to the level that you're prepared to,
Yep.
that you're doing the work internally. So if they're relying on you to be present and to hold space for them and be at peace and understand who they are. If you're not doing that work to create that for yourself, you're not going to meet them with that peace of mind, and that energy and expression is going to be felt. So when you're looking at your operating mode, your system of your day-to-day life, whatever you want to call it, you're only as good in those buckets as you're making the time for yourself.
Yep.
If you're not putting any priority and time into that area, chances are it's not going to look good to how people are receiving you. And it's a really, sometimes it's a hard thing to stop and reflect on, to say, you know, I haven't been showing up my best self. I haven't been ready to come to the table with a peaceful mind, an open heart. I'm not here for me. The only way you can not show up for yourself, ironically, is by making time for yourself so that you can then be available to other people. And that is an area that most of us struggle with quite a bit. So we encourage you to follow along with us. We've got a lot of content and a lot of information that we're talking about. We'll have some more podcasts around this topic. And you got any plugs for stuff that's coming up?
So I'm going to try and get this episode out today. If I do, tomorrow, Miltu Siv's got Veteran Coffee here in Midland. It's the second Wednesday of every month. As I mentioned last week, we've got some great events coming up on the PTSD Foundation of America for you veterans out there. Stay in touch. Follow them on LinkedIn. Follow our page as well. We'll be posting a bunch of events that are coming up locally. We'd love to see you guys out there in the Permian Basin. I'll be at OTC in Houston as well. So if you see us out there, reach out, talk to us. Supporting the Oil and Gas Global Network and the Veteran Podcast out there. Follow us on LinkedIn, One Shot Growth, Instagram, Facebook. The tags are all the same, One Shot Growth. And we hope that you'll get on our website. We've got a newsletter that we put out every week. There's a sign-up sheet on there that you can get on and fill out the survey, get access to our newsletter every week, and we'd love to hear your feedback on this. Please like, share, comment on this podcast, no matter what platform you're on. We'd love to hear your feedback. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We'd love to have you like and share this podcast. If anybody you know would resonate from what we're talking about, please, please, please share it with them.
If you get anything from this episode at all, one thing we really encourage you to do, if this hits home, is just look at one area of your mental health aspect and ask yourself, what could you do right now to put some more priority into that bucket? And highly encourage you to just put a little bit more time and attention into that this week and notice if it makes an impact in how you're showing up. So we appreciate you being here, and we look forward to continuing on the journey with you.
Thanks for following One Shot Growth.
Appreciate you being here with us on the One Shot Growth Podcast. If this episode hit for you, subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, and keep the conversation going. And if you want to see what we're building, head over to oneshotgrowth.com. We're just getting started. See you on the next one.